A new wave of mass forced mobilization in Russia.
Help! Someone help!
It will begin in October 2026. The Kremlin is no longer hiding it.
War. This is a real war.
Preparations are already underway. Russian military enlistment office staff are detaining men right on the streets.
What are you doing? Stop this lawlessness, please. Why are you forcibly taking a person to the assembly point?
They're being sent electronic summonses, and for failure to appear, their rights are being restricted.
For example, such a restriction is a ban on driving vehicles.
The majority of Russians are against mobilization because they see the huge losses.
How many dead?
And more information is reaching them about what the Russian army is really like.
Well, what now, you lying there? We're gonna treat your bronchitis. You didn't complete the mission. Why are you silent? We'll treat you the old-fashioned way.
But Putin is obsessed with the war and can't do without a new mobilization.
Once the SMO's over, what will we do? If we've gotten so carried away with this...
Who will the new mobilization affect? What methods will the authorities use to replenish the army? And why will this not lead to a breakthrough at the front, but only to increase losses for the Russian Federation? The answers are in our special report, To the Slaughter, how Russia is preparing a new wave of mass mobilization.
On what grounds did you take him off the bus and are taking him away?
Just tell me, did everyone sign the contract voluntarily?
Did they force you? Tell me, did they force you? Did they beat you?
Voluntarily or not?
You are beating them. We know that you are beating them. Where are you taking these people? Let him go. Let him go.
There are hundreds of such videos on social media where people are grabbed right off the streets. A real hunt for men has begun in the Russian Federation, on the roads, in shopping malls, and in gyms. Russians are being rounded up even on public transport. There are raids in the Moscow and St. Petersburg subways. Police officers are on duty at the turnstiles. Using the Sphera facial recognition system, they stop passengers to check their documents, after which they detain them and take them away. Forced mobilization in Russia has become the #1 fear. Conscripts are immediately taken to assembly points. One of the most well-known is on Ugreshskaya Street in Moscow. This is the main distribution center in the capital, which has become a symbol of lawlessness. Here, men are held against their will, their phones are taken away, depriving them of contact with relatives and lawyers. They conduct a sham medical examination in 15 minutes and force them to sign a contract to participate in the so-called special military operation under the threat of criminal prosecution and physical violence. It used to be that the Kremlin would say that people were going to this special military operation voluntarily and signing contracts of their own free will. Now the authorities have started talking differently. Supposedly, it's no longer just some special military operation, but a real war.
It started as a special military operation, but it's now a war.
And war usually requires mass mobilization. What is happening on the streets of Russian cities right now is a rehearsal, a fine-tuning of the mechanism and preparation. Between 300 and 600,000 people, that is exactly how many the Kremlin plans to draft immediately after the elections. These are the figures from Ukrainian intelligence.
This will become a big problem because, as I believe, he is counting on mobilizing approximately 300,000 to 500,000 people. The biggest problem is that he won't be able to train them quickly. This means he will once again send people to the battlefield who are poorly trained, and for the most part, won't be trained at all. This means heavy losses. But deciding whether to do this or not is up to him.
Putin needs fresh assault troops whose bodies will litter Ukrainian lands.
What is the task? To run, jump into a position, report that you're there, and then let your fellow soldiers come to you and help you continue the assault. Well, of course, you need to survive, not just run. Well, if you die, oh well, screw it, right? We'll just take someone else. That's the kind of task they have.
Russian government agencies have received directives to prepare infrastructure, accommodation points, transport, and logistics by October 2026. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is drafting a law on introducing exit visas for Russians, and Putin has signed a decree to increase the size of the army. Everything is pointing toward mobilization. At the same time, the Russian Ministry of Defense constantly claims that thousands of volunteers are signing contracts every day. But that is all a lie. In reality, the number of people willing to go to war, even for money, is constantly decreasing. In the first quarter of 2026, the number of volunteers decreased by 20% compared to 2025. And for the entire year of 2025, 10% fewer volunteers signed contracts with the Russian Ministry of Defense than in 2024. According to Ukrainian intelligence, in the first 7 months of 2026, Russia sent 221,000 people to the front. At the same time, Russia's losses during this period amounted to nearly 226,000 people. In other words, the influx of new people is less than the number of those severely wounded and killed.
Putin is simply preparing to send more Russians to war. He is masking this with other words. He is masking this with other signals, but he is preparing.
Many of the new contract soldiers are fleeing from the frat. Units are constantly understaffed. The financial incentives of the so-called SMO are no longer working. Even the signing bonuses, which have reached up to 2 or 3 million rubles in some regions, are not attracting volunteers. Everyone who wanted to fight for money is already at the front or has died. Furthermore, due to regional budget deficits, payments to contract soldiers are being cut. Previously, volunteers were paid an additional bonus from the governor, but now these payments have been reduced. For example, in the Samara region, instead of 3.5 million, they're giving out 400,000 rubles. In Mari El, 800,000, and in St. Petersburg, the gubernatorial bonus has been canceled altogether. Now, the foundation is the federal tranche, a one-time payment by Putin's decree in the amount of a fixed 400,000 rubles. That is why mobilization is advantageous for the Kremlin dictator. This way, people can be sent to the front for free. It's just that Russians have started to realize that this war is needed exclusively by Putin, and the probability of returning alive is extremely low.
I think that if they attempt mobilization, the main part of the population they're trying to herd to the front will simply scatter in different directions and hide inside Russia. Some will try to flee abroad.
But that already happened in 2022. After Putin's decree on partial mobilization, panic in flight swept across Russia. Huge queues were recorded at the Verkhny-Lars checkpoint and other exit points to Georgia, Mongolia, and Kazakhstan. So-called Z-patriots are saying that a new wave of mass mobilization is currently being prepared.
The specter of mobilization is wandering through the country in the offices. If mobilization is necessary, then the state must explain to society why it's needed, how it will be organized, where the equipment is, where the commanders are, where the medical support is, where the rotation is, and why this decision actually strengthens the front rather than just creating a new wave of tension in the country. But then, the mobilization of reservists, layered on top of everything mentioned, could become not a tool for victory, but additional megatons of internal explosion, especially since an attempt to mobilize reservists would mean at least 2 trillion in additional expenses, if not more. A very dangerous historical moment, however, is approaching.
There is more and more criticism from the so-called Z-patriots. Those Russians who are already at the front are also outraged by the prospects of a new mobilization. Many are publicly appealing to Putin, saying that what is needed is not a new mobilization, but an end to the war.
So when are you creature, who is over 70 years old, you so-called president, gonna end all of this? Do you want to seize even more regions? And what the hell do we need him for?
They are literally cursing Putin and openly stating that the Russian army is exhausted.
Maybe it's time for you to talk to the simple rank-and-file soldiers? Not the ones who have been intimidated, but specifically the rank-and-file, who will tell you what is actually happening in the ranks of our army.
Thousands of our soldiers are sitting in dungeons, punished by their commanders, sitting, rotten, being subjected to torture and violence.
This goes to show that the president doesn't give a damn about his own people or what is happening in his own country.
Putin really doesn't give a damn. He is delusional about seizing Ukraine and is forcing the Russian command to drive soldiers into meat grinder assaults. And for refusing, the soldiers are punished. They are beaten, thrown into pits, and shot over their heads.
Well, you bitch, are you lying down? We're gonna treat your bronchitis. You didn't complete the mission. Why are you silent? We are gonna use the methodical way on you this time, and I promise that I won't have to do it again. Just keep your hands where I can see them. Hands. Keep your hands right there.
And plus, of course, the threats. Whoever runs back, whoever tries to surrender, we will shoot them. That is, zero them. Russian drones. There have been many examples. Ukraine has published countless pieces of footage where a Russian soldier is going to surrender. A Ukrainian drone guides him, escorting him along the way to our positions. Then 1 or 2 Russian FPV drones fly in and just kill him, blow him up.
A person doesn't want to or can't go, well, carry out the order. They send an eliminator, you go, and behind you is a machine gun, and they say, if you move back, your own people will shoot you.
Russian prisoner of war Nikolai Paprikhin describes in detail how the command forced them to go on assaults. Literally naked and barefoot soldiers with severe wounds had no opportunity to refuse. For one of the assaults, Nikolai was sent on crutches after suffering a shrapnel wound to his leg.
I took my crutches, gave myself an injection. Before that, I couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom. Well, that's fine. So the operation involved using an assault rifle instead of a crutch. Assaulting on crutches is very difficult, let me tell you. You either move or you shoot.
But Nikolai wasn't the only one on crutches. Their assault unit was nicknamed the Cripple Regiment. It consisted of sick and infirm soldiers who were driven to the slaughter under threat of death.
They lined us up. That's it. Now they're handing out assault rifles, armor, and off we go. Well, how about it, Oleg? How is this even? Look, there's the medic walking by. He has epilepsy. Look, they shouldn't be taking him out after so many concussions.
Do you know what the soldiers who ended up in our assault company called it once they realized where they were? The Personnel Recycling Company. I mean, from May 5th, when the assault on Touretsk began, until the moment I arrived, the company had been reformed 5 or 6 times.
10% survive, 90% die and stay there.
And that statistic is accurate, up to 35 minutes. That is exactly how long a Russian soldier lives on average in a combat zone. From the moment of mobilization or signing a contract, a recruit only lasts about a month before being wounded or killed.
The battalion and my assault company as a whole disappeared in about 3 days. That is, they advanced about 8 kilometers, and after they had dug in somewhere, apparently cluster munitions hit them, and within
3 days, it turns out about 400 people simply ceased to exist.
Russian assault troops are being destroyed in huge numbers by Ukrainian drones. And also the minimal training of the Russian army. Due to a lack of time, recruits undergo only a few days of basic training before being sent to the front lines.
The 55th Brigade, where I served, it turns out there were 4 battalions there, and in 6 months they chewed through about 16,000 people. They go out on combat missions, and later, death notices arrive.
There is no end in sight. A new tire graveyard.
Such cemeteries are now growing at a tremendous pace all across Russia. There are more and more graves with the tricolor. Since 2022, the number of soldier burials has increased tenfold. The Russian army is suffering colossal losses. Since the beginning of the full-scale war, almost 1.5 million Russian soldiers have already died. Putin is not stopping the war, and the losses need to be replenished. Therefore, there will be mobilization. At the same time, it is impossible for those in the Russian army to be discharged, even for those who have been fighting for a long time.
Russian military personnel cannot be discharged from military service under any circumstances. Well, except for those who are completely maimed. Or those who have reached the term, well, the age of 65, or those who end up in prison. All other methods of discharge are prohibited. Therefore, those who don't want to fight, those who don't want to participate in combat operations, they either flee from their unit or they submit reports. But they are not discharged, they are put in prison. Right now, you can only return from the war in 2 cases. In the case of a black bag, or, without arms or legs. If you're just wounded in the arm or leg, they'll send you right back.
At the same time, the level of casualties exceeds the rate of natural replenishment of the army.
There are no crazy volunteers left. They've already intercepted, enticed, and dragged out everyone they could. Everyone is already there. They've taken everyone from the prisons, all the convicts. The prisons are already empty. Some are just empty today in Russia. For instance, in the Kaliningrad region, there was this large Chernyakov's pretrial detention center, and it's just empty. They shut it down because there was no one left to hold. Everyone was sent to the front.
There's such a shortage of soldiers at the front that they're recruiting alcoholics and the homeless into the Russian army. Essentially, they're scooping up everyone indiscriminately just to somehow plug the gaps.
Please show me your hands.
I went through a medical exam at the recruitment center, Sirius.
The cops grab whoever they can, theoretically grab anyone who has some kind of vulnerability in front of them. A criminal record, debts, loans, microloans, alimony, anything at all. Drink a bottle of beer. That's already a vulnerability in front of a cop in a certain sense. The cop grabs you, drags you to the station, and then, accordingly, they present you with a choice. Either you sign a contract, or for your debts, I don't know, we'll take something away. They force you to sign a contract through threats, torture, and pressure.
With the start of a new wave of mobilization, pressure, violence, and coercion will be applied to Russians who have received summonses, and they will be sent out en masse, and not just by registered mail. Electronic summonses have been introduced in the Russian Federation. If previously a person could ignore a paper notice, now the state controls those liable for military service through digital databases. A summons is considered served regardless of whether the person has seen it or not. Summonses for updating registration data have also appeared. This has become the main tool for luring people in. Ignoring the summons is costly. The fines are very high. Because of this, people go to the military enlistment office for a so-called verification, and the military commissars insert a military ID or a mobilization order.
All of this is, in essence, an invitation under pressure, so that a person can be pressured, well, forced most often, to sign a contract, and then present it to their relatives as if they had wanted to sign a contract for the war themselves.
An inserted order means that the person is officially assigned to a specific assault or rear unit. They will no longer send him summonses when mobilization is announced. He is obligated to report to the assembly point himself within a few hours. Starting in early 2026, the practice of issuing such orders to reservists became a mandatory procedure during any contact with the military enlistment office, even remotely.
So friends, today I received an SMS about a summons being sent to me for the military enlistment office. The appearance was scheduled for June 8th. I didn't wait and showed up today to clarify the information, so they handed me a mobilization order. It looks like this. This means that in the event that, God forbid, a mobilization is announced in our country, you will be required to report to the assembly point according to this order.
Human rights activists note, any summons is a legal trap, and it must be avoided at all costs. The main rule is zero contact. No trips to the military enlistment office under any pretext. That way you can stay alive rather than ending up maimed or dead. And while before you could simply hide from a summons, not live at your registered address, or not open the door to authorities, now men have found themselves in a digital trap. The state uploads the summons to a unified registry, and it is considered automatically served 7 days after publication, even if the person was unaware of it.
If such a summons arrives for a draftee, they need to immediately, again, if they don't have the resources to leave Russia, start building a strategy based on their health, or seek alternative service, or understand, for example, how you will appeal the decision, how you will intentionally delay the execution of the conscription order using bureaucratic methods just to avoid being sent to a military unit.
At the same time, restrictions are applied to a person who has ignored an electronic summons. First, they close the ability to leave the country and block driver's licenses. Driving a car becomes illegal. Any property transactions are prohibited. You cannot sell, buy, gift, or mortgage an apartment or a car. Entrepreneurial activity is prohibited, effectively depriving one of the ability to work legally and conduct business. They deny loans and microloans, and that's just the beginning. Soon, there will be many more measures to force people to go to war. For now, the Kremlin is holding back because the State Duma elections are in September 2026. Putin is very afraid of social upheaval right now.
Drastic moves like mobilization or introducing some new restrictions or something like that, this will, of course, cause a wave of rejection and unpredictable consequences in the elections. They will, of course, draw up whatever numbers they want, and I think they've already drawn them up and distributed all the percentages. But nevertheless, this is a very vulnerable time for the authorities right now, because people might come and vote in a completely different way, or not show up to the elections at all.
But once the elections are held, once United Russia gets a majority through falsifications and administrative resources, the Kremlin's hands will be untied.
There are many parties, but only one motherland. Russia, Putin, victory.
But for now, preparations are underway. In cities across the Russian Federation, mobilization drills are already being conducted, and they're even filming segments about this on regional television. The segment caused a wave of panic and anger among viewers. It was removed from the TV channel's website, but preparations for mobilization did not stop. By October 2026, all departmental databases must be fully synchronized within a unified military registration registry. The roadmap for mobilization has been worked out down to the smallest detail. The entire infrastructure is already prepared.
Because pretty much all government agencies, from Rosfin monitoring to banks to housing rentals, everything has been put on a war footing. And everything exists for the purpose of forcing people in the army.
It will be very difficult to hide within the country. You need to leave immediately, save your lives, before Putin makes the final decision on a new wave of mobilization and sending hundreds of thousands of Russians to the slaughter.
Even if you bought a SIM card using someone else's passport, even if you're renting an apartment without drawing attention, even if you're getting all your income in cash in an envelope, you'll still run into the States somewhere, somehow. People who are hiding in Russia, well, they basically have to live as fugitives and just play an endless game of spies. And that is psychologically very difficult.
Putin is so obsessed with the idea of seizing Ukraine that he is rapidly ruining his own country, simultaneously killing its citizens and destroying the economy. Mass mobilization will hit all sectors of the Russian Federation hard. But even that doesn't stop the Kremlin dictator.
For him, the war is, or rather stopping the war, is simply an existential threat. It is the end of not just his authority, because if he loses this war, he loses his life. Because this body, which has missed the mark, will no longer be needed by anyone, even in his immediate circle.
But still, the Russian military machine is not capable of digesting hundreds of thousands of new soldiers at once. The Russian Federation lacks training centers, instructors, and junior commanders. And sending unprepared people to the front will lead to even greater losses. According to the Institute for the Study of Russia, 81% of Russians are in favor of the war ending right now. Mobilization will lay another brick in the foundation of discontent with Putin. Social tension is rising and could turn into a real explosion.
It's like that small first domino that falls somewhere very far away and then carries along, drags all the other dominoes with it.
At the same time, the world's response to mobilization in Russia will be an increase in military and material support for Ukraine. Ukraine has already proven that units, even when outnumbered, can disrupt enemy offensives and inflict significant losses thanks to technology and planning. Therefore, the more people the Russian Federation drives onto Ukrainian lands, the more of them will be destroyed, further increasing the number of casualties. Russia will not be able to achieve breakthroughs on the front this way. Putin is obsessed with the war. He is throwing cannon fodder at Ukraine and has no intention of stopping. Mobilization will ruin Russia, but the Kremlin dictator will take that step anyway because his insane ambitions are more important to him than Russia. Because of mobilization, hundreds of thousands of Russians will try to flee the country. Those who stay will die on the front lines. Mobilization will not affect Putin himself or his inner circle, and it will not bring victory or breakthroughs on the front. That is why Putin's crusade will not end. The dictator truly has no idea what else to occupy Russians with besides the special military operation. Sofia Kutsenko, Special Report.